Imagine knowing when you were gonna die. Knowing that your days are numbered, but health-wise you're in decent shape. Imagine the circumstances were reversed. You didn't know when you were gonna die, but mentally, you're not well. Well, that happens to be the case for 44-year-old mentally disabled Johnny Paul Penry. In an Economist Intelligence article published in December 2nd, 2002, Johnny Paul Penry was sentenced to death on accounts for rape and murder. Now, I know what you guys might be thinking back home. Well, if he did the crime, shouldn't he deserve the consequences? Or some of you might actually even be infuriated, like, let this guy burn or get on with his death. But does this 44-year-old Johnny Paul Penry that has the same IQ of a 7-year-old really deserve to be executed? Or in that case, does anybody ever deserve to be executed? Or do they deserve to be helped? Now, capital punishment has been practiced throughout our entire nation's history, with the death penalty taking place in various ways as our country has developed, such as death by executioner, death by hanging, death by guillotine, to more modern ways such as lethal injection or death by electric chair. These methods have all been used as a way to punish, get rid of, and turn our back on our most dangerous criminals the easy way. Even till this day, there are still some parts of the US that still allow for the government to murder and kill off prisoners in our prison system each year, using capital punishment as a consequence for their crimes. Now, according to the Death Penalty Information Center, there has been a total of 1,526 executions in the US, with Texas being responsible for 570 of them. Now, although the rate of executions hasn't been at an all-time high like they used to be back in our medieval days and our barbaric times, there are still some states that heavily support the idea of capital punishment. And the number of executions that take place in these states is absolutely ridiculous, and it's happening in our own country. As a nation, we must work to ensure that these nations or these states that do support the death penalty no longer take part in taking away the most precious gift of all, and that is the gift of life. The death penalty has been practiced ever since man could come up with any type of punishment for any type of crime. Now, what happens when a criminal is executed? That's right, you guessed it. Nothing happens. The family is still traumatized and distraught. Loved ones are still dead. And maybe even worse could happen. The wrong man could be tried for the wrong crime. So now an innocent man has been killed. Now, the main reason capital punishment is still being practiced in the U.S. is because certain states such as Nevada, Idaho, and some parts of California still support this unethical way of dealing with our problems. Now, if we can abolish capital punishment in all of these states and find alternate ways other than just murder to deal with our problems, then we can prevent these government officials from just killing off our prisoners just like that. And we could prove that this way of killing off criminals and executing people is truly unethical, immoral, and inhumane. The use of capital punishment and the death penalty is still supported by the majority of our country today. And according to an Embassy of the United States of America article by David Garland, he states that the U.S. is not one single place when it comes to the death penalty, and the law and practice of the capital punishment varies from state to state and region to region. U.S. Congress does not have the power to completely abolish capital punishment like they have done in other countries such as Europe. The only way that capital punishment can truly be abolished is if the Supreme Court rules it as unconstitutional. And we haven't got anything close to that ever since the Furman versus Georgia case back in 1972. And the result of this case resulted in the Supreme Court ruling capital punishment or the death penalty as constitutionally valid in 1976. And this way of crime control must change. There are different and alternate ways we can punish our criminals to show that there are consequences for their actions. According to Columbia Law School's Jeffrey Fagan, he states in a Washington Post article in April of 2014, whether or not criminals face the threat of death, it seemed to have little effect on their behavior. That means that the death penalty or the use of capital punishment has not had any significant effect or has not had any significant difference on the crime rate. which means that this way of crime control, it must come to an end and it must stop. The way we can stop this is we could spread the awareness and spread this type of information in all states that still support the death penalty and slowly begin to rid of capital punishment state by state. There are different types of punishment that we can use, such as solitary confinement and or life in prison. We can also write to our government representatives in order to have the Supreme Court finally rule the use of capital punishment unconstitutional and pass a law that prohibits the government from taking any more lives. Now, more than half of the states in America, which is 28 states, still allow for executions to take place, and only the Supreme Court has the power to abolish capital punishment in all states. As there has been no evidence that sentencing prisoners to death has any effect on the crime rate, therefore it is unjust and unnecessary. We can only solve this problem together as a nation by spreading awareness, especially in the states such as Nevada, Texas, Idaho, Montana, and many more that are in favor of this death penalty. We can convince them that executing human beings is unconstitutional no matter the circumstances. Although many of the criminals placed on death row have been responsible for some heinous crimes and heinous acts, they should still be entitled to some rights, because they are human beings and they do have basic rights like you and me. Unfortunately, they do not have as much say after they are put behind those bars. It is all up to the government at that point. So it is either up to the government or it's up to us to protect those who cannot protect their own rights. Thank you.